To understand the Old English period, one must first understand the great absence that preceded it. By the year 410 CE, the Roman administrative machine in Britain had collapsed. The Roman legions, needed to defend the heart of the empire from Alaric the Goth, withdrew, leaving the Romano-British population in a state of existential panic. The island was inhabited primarily by Celtic-speaking Britons. Their culture was a sophisticated hybrid. They lived in Roman-style villas but spoke Brythonic, a sister tongue to modern Welsh and Breton. When the Romans left, the infrastructure remained. Straight roads like Watling Street and the Fosseway, and walled cities like Londinium and Eboracum or present-day York. But the political soul was gone. The Britons were immediately beset by northern raiders, the Picts and the Scots. According to the 6th century monk Gildas in his polemic De Excidio et Conquesto Britanniae, or on the ruin and conquest of Britain, a proud tyrant named Vortigern sought a desperate solution. Around 449 CE, he invited Germanic mercenaries from the North Sea coast to serve as a federati, or protector force. These were the Angles from England in Schleswig, the Saxons from Lower Saxony, and the Jutes from the Jutland Peninsula. The landing of the brothers Hengist and Orsa at Ebbsfleet, Kent, was not a single event, but the opening of a floodgate. The mercenaries soon realized that the British soil was fertile and the British defense was fractured. The migration was a replacement event. Over the next century, the Germanic tribes systematically pushed the Britons into the Western Islands, what the invaders called Wales, meaning foreigners or slaves, the root word for modern Wales. This new society was governed by comitatus, a martial social structure described in detail by the Roman historian Tacitus. Life revolved around the mead hall. It was a symbolic fortress of light against the weird or the unpredictable fate of the dark wilderness. At the center was a Dryden, or lord. He was the Bia Giver, or the ring giver. His thanes, or warriors, owed him a loyalty that transcended familial blood. To survive one's lord in battle was to become a Raika, or a wretch or exile, a theme that would later define the melancholy of Old English poetry. Linguistically, this was the era of Old West Germanic. While the Celts were there first, their linguistic impact was surprisingly minimal, confined mostly to toponymy, or place names. We see this in the river names, like Avon from the Celtic Avon for river, and Thames. Beyond these, the Germanic tongue was a bulldozer, erasing the Brythonic grammar from the southeastern lowlands. By the mid-6th century, the tribal territories coalesced into the Heptarchy, or the 7 major kingdoms, namely Kent, East Anglia, Northumbria, Mercia, Wessex, Essex, and Sussex. In 597 CE, the most significant cultural shift in the period's history occurred. Pope Gregory the Great, allegedly inspired by seeing blonde-haired Angli, or the Angles, in a Roman slave market and remarking they looked like angeli, or angels, sent Augustine of Canterbury to convert King Ethelbert of Kent. The conversion was a masterstroke of cultural integration. Christianity brought with it the Latin alphabet and the Roman concept of codex, the book. Before this, the Germanic people used footwork, runes, a system of 24 to 33 characters designed for stabbing into hard surfaces. The Latin script allowed for the preservation of complex thought. This era saw the Northumbrian Renaissance. From the monastery of Jarrow, the Venerable Bede produced the Historia Ecclesiastica Gentis Anglorum, or the ecclesiastical history of the English people, in 731 CE. Bede was the first to give the various tribes a collective name, the English. During this time, Latin flooded the vocabulary, but exclusively in intellectual and religious domains. Altar, anthem, candle, martyr, palm, and psalter are examples. On June 8, 793 CE, the Viking Age crashed into England with the sack of the Holy Island of Lindisfarne. Alcuin of York, a scholar of Charlemagne's court, wrote in horror, "Never before has such a terror appeared in Britain." The Vikings, who were the Old Norse speakers, weren't just raiders. They were settlers by force. By 865 CE, the great heathen army, led by the sons of Ragnar Lodbrok, began a systematic conquest. Northumbria, East Anglia, and Mercia fell. Only Wessex remained, led by a 22-year-old king named Alfred. Alfred's victory at the Battle of Edington in 878 CE and the subsequent Treaty of Edinburgh saved the English language from total Norse replacement. The treaty established the Danelaw, a boundary running from the Thames to the Mersey. The linguistic impact of the Danes was profound, but democratic. Because Old Norse and Old English were sister Germanic tongues, they were often mutually intelligible. To facilitate trade, speakers dropped their complex, differing inflections or case endings. This contact is arguably the most important moment in English linguistic history. They borrowed the very bones of their language from the Vikings. Pronouns like they, them, their, basic verbs like take, give, get, want, common nouns like sky, egg, window, husband, law were all part of this exchange. With the peace established by Alfred, the West Saxon dialect became the first standard written English. This is the period of the great manuscripts. The Old English poetic soul is defined by alliterative verse. Unlike modern rhyming poetry, Old English verse relied on the repetition of ancient consonant sounds across a caesura or a pause in the middle of a line. The first of these was Beowulf. Likely transcribed in the late 10th century in the Novel Codex, it represents a peak of syncretism, the blending of pagan heroic values with Christian morality. It explores the tension between weird or the inevitable fate and the will of the Christian God. Then came the elegies, which are found in the Exeter book of 970 CE. Poems like The Wanderer and The Seafarer capture the Anglo-Saxon melancholy. They use the Ubisunt motif. Where are they? Reflecting on the ruined Roman stone structures which they called the work of giants and the fleeting nature of life. The prose of this period was facilitated by King Alfred, who personally translated Latin texts into English so that all the youth now in England may be set to learning. This was the birth of English as a language of high prose. By the 10th century, England was far from a dark age. Under King Aethelstan, the first true king of all England, and Edgar the Peaceful, the country became the most administratively sophisticated state in Europe. They developed the shire and hundred system. Each shire was overseen by a shire reeve, which is the root word for sheriff. They established a national coinage and the return, an assembly of high-ranking clergy and nobles who advised the king. This was a precursor to the modern parliament. The Benedictine reform, led by Dunstan and Ethelwood, saw a massive revival in manuscript illumination and architecture. However, the shadow of the Vikings returned with Ethelred, the Unready, leading to a period of Danish kingship under Nut the Great from 1016 to 1035. This further cemented the integration of Scandinavian culture into the English identity. The death of the childless Edward the Confessor in January 1066 triggered a global power struggle. Harold Godwinson was crowned in London, representing the native Saxon interest. Harald Hardrada of Norway invaded the north, seeking to re-establish the Viking Empire. However, William of Normandy, a descendant of Vikings who had adopted French language and culture, claimed the throne by a prior promise. Harold Godwinson defeated Hardrada at Stamford Bridge on September 25, 1066, effectively ending the Viking Age. But just days later, William landed at Pevensey. On October 14, 1066, at the Battle of Hastings, the Old English era died. The Normans replaced the entire English aristocracy. Old English was stripped of its status. It was no longer the language of the court, the law, or the church. It became the language of the ignorant peasantry. During this 300-year underground period, the language underwent a radical transformation. It absorbed massive amounts of Old French related to law, food, and government, and lost almost all of its complex Germanic inflections. When it re-emerged in the time of Chaucer, it was no longer Old English. It was Middle English. The Old English period is the most misunderstood era of English history. It was not a primitive prelude, but a sophisticated multicultural laboratory. It gave us our legal concepts, a system of local government, and the core of our vocabulary. While French gave them their intellectual words, Old English gave them human ones. They speak of science and literature, but they love, hate, live, and die Old English. To study this period is to see the very forge of Britain, a language and a people born from the collision of cultures, the resilience of scholars, and the iron of warriors. We will discuss the text in detail in the next episode. Stay tuned.